With Democratic leaders to try and avoid a government shutdown, Mitch McConnell agrees to have a vote on the criminal justice reform bill. Lastly, CNN gets rid of their only black Republican Trump supporter commentator. This is A Better World, and I'm your host, Luis Acevedo. Starting off today, we're going to talk about President Trump's meeting with the Democratic leaders Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. As we have known before, they have agreed to giving President Trump $1.6 billion to help fund border security and technology, not to be used for a wall. They have also already given $1.3 billion to be used for security and technology and not for a wall. Obviously, President Trump does not like this arrangement, being that he can't use the funds for what he wants to use them for and what the people who elected him into office want him to use the funds for. He's also irritated at the fact that he's asking for $5 billion and they're not giving him anywhere near that, and he is not allowed to use any of the funds for actually building the wall itself. So there's a lot of issues here on the Democratic side of things, especially when President Trump has been willing to compromise with them on things such as DACA. He was willing to say, you know what, I will agree to DACA if you give me the funds for the border wall. You know what they said? No deal. No deal. This is a political move by the left to prevent President Trump from fulfilling his campaign promises that got him elected in the first place. That way, it ruins his chances of winning in 2020. It's a simple thing. Anybody with any kind of foresight will be able to recognize this is what the Democrats are trying to do in not allowing President Trump to use the funds for border wall or not give him the whole $5 billion at all. Another reason why this is pretty obvious to see this is the Democrats' move is because back in 2016, they had no issue agreeing to building a fence on the southern border under President Bush in 2006. They had no issue with it. So it's not as if this is a new thing they have been talking about. Also, if you go back far enough, you'll see early 2000s, 1990s, 1980s. You'll see Democrats talk about the need to protect our border. You'll see Democrats talking about better enhancing our protection when it comes to illegal immigration. This is stuff that they've been talking about for years. Now President Trump's in office, they completely rewrite their script because they do not actually want change to be done. They have been benefiting from the immigration system we have in our country right now, especially the Democrats. And now with the 116th Congress that is majority Democrats, who were elected by in part because they want to abolish ICE and create an open borders, which will destroy America. I don't know why people don't put two and two together. If you don't have a border, you don't have a country. And if you don't have a country, we can't live in America. Then what are we? What are we? Are we just citizens of the world? Then who controls what we do? Who is in charge of our society? That's the real questions we need to ask. Anyway, I say this because the new Democrats that are coming in actually want to abolish ICE and get rid of the border. So they can further benefit from illegal immigrants and immigrants in general. They are starting to lose the black vote. They're going over to President Trump. Now they need to bring in other people so that way they can substitute their loss of a minority vote. They have already lost the white vote. They've already lost it. Now they need to gain more people into the country who are not originally from here so that way they can gain their support by saying, hey, we're going to give you a bunch of free stuff. That's what they're trying to do, and it is very sick because it just goes to show that Democrats don't care about you and I. They just care about maintaining power. That is the truth. That is the facts of the matter, and it is very discouraging that a lot of the public does not see this. This is so obvious. If you just go back and just read through previous articles, you just read history of what Democrats did to win over the black vote. I mean, this is just sickening. This is the same tactic over and over and over again. It's pattern recognition. Once you start reading through political history, you'll realize that this is the same thing Democrats have been doing for a long time. Now they're just trying to win over new voters. That's essentially what they're doing. They don't want President Trump to fulfill his campaign promises because it'll ensure his victory in 2020. So basically, Democrats are saying, we don't want to listen to what half of America has said they want somebody to do. We're just going to do what we can do to maintain in power because you guys who voted for him, President Trump that is, don't really know what you're doing, and we'll help you guys through this. This is a sick way of going about politics, but that's exactly what the Democrats do. This is nothing new. And I have to add, I know I haven't shared this before, but I used to be a Democrat. I used to support liberal ideology. I used to think that it was the way to go. I used to think that Republicans were the bad guys because they were in favor of big corporations. When I started reading a little bit more, I realized, hey, this is not true. You know who promotes actual more power to the corporations? Well, the Democrats do. They provide subsidies. They tax them. I'm not saying Republicans aren't guilty of that because there are some Republicans who are guilty of that as well because you have people who just want power. That's it. They don't care about you or I. They're just running for office so that way they get power. They can enrich themselves and their family. Yes, that happens all the time. There are people who are corrupt. And what's even more scary is that Maxine Waters, one of the most corrupt people in our government, will be a head of the Finance Committee. She has been caught actually making it so that way funds are given to her and her family. She has made it so the government works in her family's favor when it comes to private companies. It is very sickening. I would look into it and do some research on that if you don't believe me. This is the kind of people that the Democratic Party have pushed to be in power. Now they have a new class of people who are actively trying to destroy this country, and this is the main reason, one of the main reasons President Trump is having such a hard time getting funding for his border wall. It's very sickening that they're willing to play political games to prevent him from actually achieving his goal. Now, actually, Senator Orrin Hatch of Utah stated the following in a CNN article: the Democrats will do anything to hurt this president. Okay, but I don't care. All I can say is he's doing a good job as president. And then the article goes on to saying, what? He's doing a good job? What is Senator Hatch talking about? Let's lay out the facts for him, being that President Trump had alleged affairs and gave hush money. Okay, this has nothing to do with him being a good or bad president. If you want to talk about him having affairs and that disqualifies him from being a good president, then why does everybody think JFK was such a good president? I think he was a good president. I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm just following this chain of logic here, that if Donald Trump's a bad president because of the alleged affairs he has had, then wouldn't that mean JFK would be a bad president? Wouldn't that mean FDR would be a bad president? Wouldn't that mean LBJ was a bad president? I mean, come on. That's the chain of logic on the left. No. I know what it is. They have cognitive dissonance. That's exactly what goes on the left. Completely blinded by what they do, and when anybody else does something the same way they do, they realize that it's wrong. But they don't have the self-awareness to understand that they're doing the same exact things. I'm all for being consistent with logic. If they are stating, hey, President Trump is not a great president because he cheated on his wife, and JFK wasn't a good president because he cheated on his wife, same with FDR, same with LBJ, then guess what? I'd have no problem with that chain of logic because that's your opinion, although I don't think that is a very sound way to judge a presidency on their private life. That just seems a little stupid and uninformed. Really, if that's going to be your basis on deciding if a president was good or not. They go over nothing of his policies in here and just talk about this and the campaign hush and the hush money, which we already know for the Stormy Daniels case was bogus because Stormy Daniels ended up having to pay, or is having to pay, President Trump like hundreds of thousands of dollars. She lost that case. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. They're trying to talk about campaign finance violations. What about Barack Obama did the same thing? Nobody talks about that. He wasn't going to be impeached for that. I don't think anybody should be impeached for that, because if that was the case, if we set that precedent, then almost nobody would be able to actually qualify for the presidency, because that happens so often and so frequently. It's not out of the norm. I'm not saying it's okay. I think that we should definitely do some campaign finance reform in order to prevent that from happening in the future. But if we're going to set that, this once again goes to the cognitive dissonance. Somebody in their party does it, they don't realize it, they don't understand it is the same thing that the other party's doing, and they just look at the other party and blame them as the main accuser without recognizing their own party's doing it too. Double standards at its finest. And I have to say that they don't even talk about anything in his policy, which is quite interesting, especially when it comes to that aspect of his presidency, the part that actually matters, the policies he implements. He is doing a very good job, and Senator Hatch is exactly right. If we look at the unemployment rate, it's at the lowest that we've seen it in years, if not ever. As for the minority community, we see it being the lowest it's ever been. For the blacks, for the Hispanics, under President Trump. They are doing all very well. The trade deal that's going on between China and the U.S. China's just agreed to cut down their tariffs to 15% from 40% on U.S. auto imports. Or exports, I'm sorry. They just agreed to slash them from 40 to 15%. This is because, like I've stated before, and on numerous occasions, President Trump, the United States, has all the leverage in the deals between us and China. So, there we go. We have that going for him. We have the employment rate. We have wages going up under President Trump. We also, something nobody else is talking about, and surprisingly, not really surprisingly, CNN doesn't talk about this, but hey, you know what just happened for the durable goods and manufacturing? Well, they just hit a 4% increase. This is the highest they've ever been since 2000. This is an increase from 3.7%, which was a month earlier. On top of that, there's actually, according to the Labor Department, 332,000 job openings in the sector, manufacturing that is, with 227,000 of those jobs being filled. The economists claimed that the tariffs between the trade war and the aluminum and steel were going to cost 146,000 jobs. That's not the case. It's not the case whatsoever. So I'm still waiting to find out exactly what President Trump has done to make him such a bad president, other than being a polarizing figure. I will give that to the left, that he is a polarizing figure, and I think he's a polarizing figure only because we have cultural Marxism taking over our society at the moment, and it's been slowly taking over our society since the 50s and 60s. And it is dangerous. Nobody is paying attention to it. The only people that are really paying attention to it, I should say, not nobody, but the only people who are really paying attention to it are those on the right and those who are center of left. Realize that their party, the left-wing party, is no longer moderate or center of left. They are completely over to the Karl Marxist side of things. This has been going on for years. For years. We are openly talking about implementing communist policies. And that's not a far-fetched idea. We want the state to run our schooling. We want the state to run our health care. What else are we going to want the state to run? I don't know. All I can tell you is that that's not a very good pattern to set, to start having taxpayer dollars funding everything. Why? Well, socialism only lasts as long as there was abundance left over from capitalism. That is why. There's no innovation when it comes to socialism. None whatsoever, so you can't generate new money. There's no new means to create wealth from. It just stays stagnant. It doesn't work. History has shown us that time and time again. And now we're electing people that want to take us back in history. We've made so much progress because of capitalism. Now we want to backtrack. These are things that we need to be very well aware of and make sure we say something about it. Do our homework. Have you noticed that not one socialist Democrat has stated how they will pay for any of their plans? You know why? Because they don't want to tell you they're going to have to tax the hell out of middle-class workers. If you look over in Canada or the Scandinavian countries, anybody making $50,000 a year are being taxed half of their income. They don't want to tell you they have to do that. You have to be aware of what's going on. Do not buy in to these fallacies. They will work in the short term. I will give them that. In the short term, they will work out very well. In the long run, they will destroy this country. Think of it like this. You're trying to lose weight. And you are thinking, if I lose weight and I get in better shape, I start going to the gym and I start eating healthy, then the longevity of my life will be better. That's a good chain of logic. Now, you have a thought in your mind, well, that piece of pie won't be too bad, and it'll taste really good right now, and then you have that piece of pie, then you have another piece of junk food, and then you have some pop. These are all short-term decisions that are really, really good right there in that moment. Because going for a 20-minute run is not as fun as sitting down and watching a 20-minute sitcom, drinking a soda, and having a piece of pie. But that short-term, easy road is going to decrease the quality of your life in the long run. Whereas opposed to the former example, eating right, dieting, working out will increase the quality of your life for the long run. It doesn't seem as fun, it doesn't seem as enjoyable because you have to be more disciplined and maybe eat boring foods. I put quotation marks because there's actually a lot of food that is healthy and it tastes well and you can make it an exciting meal. So that's kind of, if not exactly, what the Democrats are trying to do. Just saying, hey, we're just going to give you all this free stuff until we run out of money. And then when we run out of money, well, I don't know what we're going to do. We'll figure it out. When we run out of money, we'll just take control over everything. That's what we'll do. That's their end goal. So that's what's going on with the border wall, President Trump's achievements thus far, and we'll see exactly where we end up with a deal between Republicans and Democrats. Like I've stated earlier in the episode, we have until the 21st. So we'll see if a deal can be made. Until then, we'll just have to wait. In other news, Mitch McConnell has finally agreed to move ahead on allowing for the criminal justice reform bill to be voted on in the Senate. This was taking him forever to do, even after President Trump gave it support. Now, I did an episode on this already, but I'll go over some of the things that this criminal reform bill actually plans to do. One of the things that it wants to do is something that Senator Kamala Harris has stated needs to be ended, which is bans the shackling of pregnant and postpartum women. So Senator Kamala Harris thinks that's a good idea because it's in the bill, right? Also, they want to make sure that everybody gets an ID after they leave prison. They want to add more retroactive good time credits. Make sure that you're not in a jail or prison further than 500 miles away from your home. That way families can have a reasonable trip to come and see you, although 500 miles is kind of long, but it's better than, I guess, what it was before. This also will reduce the lifetime mandatory minimum sentence for people with non-violent drug felonies convictions to 25 years and reduce 20-year mandatory minimum sentences for similar offenses to 15 years. It'll also retroactively implement the Fair Sentencing Act of 2010, which Barack Obama implemented, which is to reduce the disparity between cocaine and crack cocaine. President Trump has already endorsed this. He wants it to come through. Senator Mitch McConnell has finally said that he would allow this to come to a vote on the Senate floor, which will pass for sure. And once again, I ask, why is President Trump doing a bad job at being president? I don't know. This is going to be a bipartisan win. President Trump's doing criminal justice reform. Barack Obama didn't do that. So, yeah, I still am waiting to hear the reasons, policy-wise, why President Trump is bad at doing his job. So far, it looks like Senator Hatch is 100% right. 100% right. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about today was an article that I read in The Hollywood Reporter and also in Breitbart to hear the person who was accused of some false accusations. Hollywood Reporter has an article written, pro-Trump contributor Paris Denard leaves CNN after suspension, alleged biases. So, like I stated in the intro, he's the only black Republican Trump supporter on CNN. The only reason I said black is because it seems, well, I'll just tell you flat out, it's to expose the cognitive dissonance on the left once again. Everybody who is being penalized for their old tweets, if you haven't noticed, have been black men. Kevin Hart, Kyler Murray, the Heisman Trophy winner, now the CNN contributor, who's a Trump supporter and black, has been suspended over false accusations of sexual harassment. I say false because there was already an investigation done. They were found to have him be innocent. And this was done 4 years ago, mind you. 4 years. He's had a commentating career for, I think he said, since 2000. I don't know if it's been at CNN the whole time. And this is because of an article posted by the Washington Post, bringing up these accusations, which he states was against the Arizona State University's policy to give away confidential records like those, which apparently had to be leaked out to the Washington Post because that's what they were talking about, was these confidential articles. Files that had the case on there. They just conveniently left out the part where he was proven innocent and that he actually did not commit any sexual assault or harassment whatsoever. They conveniently left that out. CNN read the article and said, you know what, we have to suspend him. Didn't even look into the article themselves. Didn't even verify what had took place. This is clear bias on the CNN's part. If they were to look at the article and then look at the confidential records, they would realize, oh man, this guy was innocent. There's nothing here. The Washington Post is creating fake news. This is once again why President Trump states the press is the enemy of the people. Why? The mainstream media is fake news. This is why they get their names, because they publish false stories like this to intentionally hurt innocent people that just happen to be on the other side of the political spectrum than them. This is disgusting. Hopefully something can come out of this for Paris Denard. And maybe my suggestion is start your own podcast, start a YouTube channel, go talk to conservative places that are willing to have you there and be another voice. The left doesn't play fair anymore. They haven't played fair in a long time, in a very long time. But they have completely thrown out the rule books and gone completely insane. Their political ideology, their philosophy, is cognitive dissonance, deflect, and throw. That's what it is, and it's disgusting. It really is, especially when innocent people lose their jobs for no other reason than they have a different opinion than you. That's illegal, by the way. That's discrimination. The party of inclusivity and equality is actively discriminating against people who think differently than them. See? Cognitive dissonance at its finest. No logic on the left, no wisdom, just a insatiable hunger for power. That's today's news, and I hope you all enjoyed it, and we will be back here tomorrow. Until then, peace.